What is it?
I heard the CEO of Bed Bath & Beyond signed Preston's shower door.
Susan E. Gove? Are you me?
I just said it. But what I want to get into is, I want to get into like the bigger picture of how this stuff is all connected.
I want to get into like the bigger picture of how this stuff is all connected. How this stuff is all connected.
Because when you're talking about like really elite levels, the name of the game is blackmail. So they want something on you that they can hold over your head so they can basically own you and tell you what to do. And they film it. And then they own it. So that's what runs the whole system, basically. They want compromised people because they're easy to control. And a lot of people, they'll just go along with it and do whatever just for fame or money or accolades or any of that stuff. I don't understand it. Some people are just like really into the evil shit. Do you know anyone who was murdered because of it? Not personally, but people are murdered for it.
Without a doubt. Now, to transition a little bit to music, those same people that run the world, we understand that they have to have, a stranglehold over music. So, you've been in the industry a long time. How is it in the music industry? Is that whole conversation about the gatekeepers real? The rituals, things people gotta do, blood sacrifice thing. I don't know if you got into all that, but can you kind of go there? You were in the belly of the beast in the music industry.
I read about all of that, and I need to say my truth. And you would think that with the height of success that I had and the things I was able to do, the amount of records I sold, and actually the amount of I don't want to say political power, but the amount of social power that I was able to achieve. You would think that I would be a prime candidate for so we could say, we could call it something, to be a member of the Illuminati or a member of the elite society or whatever. You would think that that they would come at me, and I think they did sideways. Nobody never got at me directly and said, we want you to join us and we're doing this.
Oh, shoot. All right, I'm trying a new setup. So, awesome. I should pull up the stream chat to see how it's looking. But wow, there's a lot to see. Okay, thank you for thank you for coming, everyone. I just wanted to do a little impromptu about P. Diddy and Epstein, and especially how they interconnect, which surprisingly enough is allegedly Doug Cifu. So I'm going to go through some different slides. All right. Okay, I hope this is looking good. I don't know how my audio or anything else is doing, but can you guys in the chat hear me good? So rewinding, like 2 years ago when I was first entered the kind of GameStop, Ryan Cohen investing kind of world, I noticed pretty quickly that this random person who seems to have a lot of other better things to do, which is Doug Cifu, as one of the co-owners of the Florida Panthers. Well, I mean, he was. Now he's not associated with them anymore because of his bad behavior. But is also CEO of Virtu Financial. And so at that time, it's kind of a long story, but anyway, I was curious whether he was connected to Jeffrey Epstein or any of Jeffrey Epstein's, clients. And it really actually wasn't that hard to find the first person, which was a guy named Frederick Fekkai. And he has his own kind of salon brand, which is interesting that one of the influencers that Doug Cifu seems to work with is A.M.E, that trader girl, right? She works in hair stuff and ended up actually, I think, going to school in New York where Epstein used to do his finding girls and whatnot. So, wow, I wish I had someone else up here. Okay, so let's see. So the main connection that was very fascinating that I just found is the guy in the middle here, which his name is Carl Connie, and I had no idea. I mean, I'd never heard of even the brand, and so then to find, here we have him with Bill Clinton, and he was actually the one who gave Diddy his start back in the very beginning. So we can see here. Let's see, and this is from literally his his actually about page as well, and then there's another interview. But yeah, like P. Diddy was a complete nobody when I guess Carl Connie found him. And the question is, how did Carl Connie find P. Diddy? Well, Carl Connie wanted to get into rapping at the age of 13, which seems pretty young, especially since it was a budding kind of movement. And I think part of it has to do with his parents, right? But we'll get into that in a second. So he wants to get into the rap scene, but he's too young to get into the clubs. So what does he do? He does a bunch of house parties. And, that's where P. Diddy probably met them. They were doing all these kind of Greek letter society, these fraternity kind of parties. And it's just kind of interesting. I wasn't part of that life, but I can't really imagine like a 13-year-old kid there. That just seems really out of place. Wow. Actually, I just realized also, Kanye West, talked about, exploring sexuality with his cousin when he was like 6 or 7. So, wow, that's puts a whole nother twist on things. But anyway, it's very likely that some pretty weird things went on there because in these Greek letter societies, one of the kind of Greek sort of philosophies is this idea of these sex apprenticeships, and that's okay to have sex with little kids. It's not bad at all. In fact, it's good for them because it teaches them. Super messed up. There's actually a scene, I don't have the queued up, but of someone of this Nexium, this group called Nexium. It was like a self-help group, but really it was just like a sex trafficking cult. And it was associated with the Bronfmans, which, it all comes back together, which is wild to me, how it's all connected. And so anyway, you have a 13-year-old kid there, making his name for himself. And his dad is from Panama, his mom is from Puerto Rico, and they have someone they're working with that is that's doing a lot of the sewing for, this kind of budding clothes company that's from Haiti. So, just keep that in mind of those different places, because that's important. And so timeline wise, and so right here in his about page, it's not even secret. It says, so this is back 1989, and he was procuring and capturing the street and often sold to Jamaican drug dealers. That's a very specific thing to say. And super random, but that was the new thing. All of a sudden it went from, before the Jamaican drug dealers came in, who was doing it before was, our FBI and our CIA, right? If you know anything about the Iran-Contra affair, they were, taking drugs from, Central America. They would take them on a boat up to Mexico, and then they would, just fly them into, I think it was Mena Airport in Arkansas, where Bill Clinton was governor. I think he was governor. So, Bill Clinton comes up a lot in this, that's why, right? As he was, part of the drug cartel, right? And so the FBI was making sure that no one else but their own people was selling drugs, which is super messed up. And so at one point, the main person that was flying these planes over the border actually crashed. And so he crashed in Nicaragua, and they I don't know, anyway, they held him captive and brought him to the United States, and then the whole world knew what was going on. Blows my mind that not very many people really cared what was actually going on, because literally nothing changed. But there was a whole Senate hearing. I've asked some, kind of boomers what they remember. They're I don't know, something Oliver North, which, it's wow, good job. Kind of could have been a turning point for the world, but anyway, so they got busted. The bank they were using ended up going under, which was BCCI, which is out of Pakistan, because that's where see, the problem with this whole thing is it's worldwide. This is literally the world drug and sex trafficking cartel, right? It's just one group, which is mind-blowing. But obviously, since it's worldwide, there's lots of people involved, and hopefully through this, it'll just be some kind of things to look into, to do some digging on your own, because it's one of those things you don't really believe until you start digging, and then you're like, oh wow, that's absolutely insane. So the BCCI, that bank out of Pakistan, they were part of what was called the Safari Club. And so the Safari Club was when, after the Iran-Contra affair got exposed, the CIA, FBI tried to hide their drug trafficking and sex trafficking more. So they kind of moved it to Saudi Arabia with the Khashoggi family, right? The Khashoggi family that Jeff Bezos hired to be a journalist, right? For his newspaper, the Washington Post, I think it is. So anyway, it's super weird. I don't want to get too lost, right? Just because, anyway, so the normal drug trafficking got shut down, and so it kind of switched to, because the Panama Canal was somehow part of that, and I'm not exactly sure I mean, I know there was Noriega and, and a lot going down there, and that's where all the ships, had to go through to be able to cross. So maybe that Noriega and Panama part has more to do with the sex trafficking than the actual drug trafficking, because I think, I don't know, it wouldn't make as much sense. But anyway, like this trafficking route switched. And another thing that's also important is Cuba, right? So for a long time, Cuba was just kind of the outpost for the mobsters of the world, actually. Literally after World War II, they all gathered together in Cuba, and they had their big fancy casinos, and people would go there. Anyway, it was one of their cash cows for everything from gambling, prostitution, all that kind of stuff. And so when Fidel Castro came in and kicked them out, they were all mad. And so the mobsters, who after Operation Underworld have been working directly with the United States government, they agreed to get rid of Fidel Castro so they could go back to doing all their bad stuff there in Cuba. That didn't work, the Bay of Pigs, all that stuff, right? And there's a lot there. But anyway, TLDR is it didn't work, so they needed another outpost, and so that outpost ended up being Jamaica. Also, Haiti is one of the outposts that's like kind of always been one of the outposts ever since, ever since like the 1400s. To be honest, with the slave trade and everything, a lot of it came out of Haiti. So you have this new kind of outpost in Jamaica, and now there's this whole new drug scene, with these Jamaican drug dealers, and somehow you get this kid who's son of a Panama dad and a Puerto Rican mom, and he starts making custom clothes for these drug dealers. And so that's when P. Diddy got his start, was from Carroll County. He was one of his first models. You can see it in this center picture, which is fascinating, right? So he was a nobody at that point, and you can kind of see the connections they then made. I mean, you can tell it's not that much longer that the picture with, because that seems like a pretty old picture of Bill Clinton. So that's kind of crazy. You got to think, like, why would those two even be interacting, right? A person that makes custom street clothes and the president of the United States, like, just super random. But there he is. All right. So let's see. I just realized I can't see my whole screen. Shoot. Sorry. Haven't done any streaming in a while, so yeah. Oh. Of course. Okay. Oh well, that has to be good enough, I guess. So all right, so how does this have to do with, I mean, there's lots of people, there's lots of ways this could go. You can, there's a lot to dig into here, right? And I hope the FBI is digging into all these. I'm sure, none of this probably is new, because it was definitely the elephant in the room. There's no way you could, I mean, they were the cartel, right? And you can start to see the it seems kind of mind-boggling to imagine just like this seamless connection between the government and organized crime. Like you hear on the news, like, is it really that, all these Democrats going to El Salvador to be with the MS-13 gang members that they want back in the United States? Like, is that really because they're the hitman of the Democrat Party, right? Like, is that really it, right? Like, it seems insane to think about. But, when you really start doing the digging, it's like there's enough that's just straight up out there that, I mean, you just look into the Iran-Contra affair. That's been, I mean, it was in front of the Senate, right? And they laid out enough facts to where if you understand the basic facts of the Iran-Contra affair, then none of this should be a stretch of the imagination, right? So, but even before the Iran-Contra affair, what happened before that? Well, we had World War II. Basically our government used, in Project Underworld or Operation Underworld, used the mafia, the different mafias, to win the war, right? They told the Italian mafia, hey, you can go take back Italy, right? And they had the other mafias, right, like the Jewish mafia, take over, like help with France and whatnot. So there's a lot of history there. Let's see if I want to go completely down that road, because there's a lot. I guess just for starters, this is the organization, right? And it's all important because you see the same players. Like, nothing has literally changed since the world mob, or they call it the World Brotherhood, or Fraternity Mundi, because it was, I guess, made in France. They have the same players, right? And when you see the pattern, you know what to look for, because you're always going to find these same entities, right? A lot of it's, you got the bank in France, BNP Paribas. They're the ones who keep getting kicked out of all these different countries for counterfeit, for naked short selling. You have the Bronfman family, who has Seagram, right, the alcohol company, and they were doing this sex trafficking cult, right? And he's from Canada, so you have Toronto Dominion Bank, and who was it that was doing they just got busted 2022 for money laundering for the different drug cartels. So you also have and they took over TD Bank, took over as soon as so Jeffrey Epstein was using J.P. Morgan, who he actually was an ambassador for, and Deutsche Bank. So he had money in both those banks. And then when he got busted, finally got officially busted, he got busted in 2011. But Cyrus Vance, whose father actually covered up the JFK assassination and tried to blame it on Cuba. Anyway, that's a whole nother wild thing. But Jeffrey Epstein got busted in 2011, but Cyrus Vance, from New York, covered it up and got him off the hook. But then we got busted again, Deutsche Bank and JP Morgan, cut him off. And so he moved his money to TD Bank, right? Which is just totally wild. All right. Then you have, the World Bank and some other things. Let's see. This is definitely a practice run. I was going to put these all in order. Oh yeah, here's a little more, which it's crazy, like, you know, and it's not everyone from these different things, like the Rotary, right? It just kept coming up, you know. The Kamala Harris is a fellow of the Rotary, and anyway, it's just, there are these vehicles, these social vehicles that, you know, can be leveraged. Doesn't mean everyone is bad in them, but if the top 0.1% are bad, and it's a vehicle that it's, you know, something to definitely look into. So when you look into the World Brotherhood, you have to search it on the French Wikipedia, because it's called Fraternity Mundi or Mundiali. But it was RCIA, right? RCIA, you know, the Bronfmans, which is, you know, the mob in Canada, and then you had the Swiss bankers, you had you know, the Jewish mafia, you had, you know, all these different mafias, you had the Corsican mafia, and they all got together. Their first meeting was actually in 1943. That was what, you know, in my opinion, turned the war, was when the world mafia formed, right? And you had Alan Dulles was literally there, you know, when it was formed, you know, the head of the CIA. And the CIA's first mission was to work with the Corsican mafia, you know, the French mafia, to rough up the dock workers to make sure that they didn't protest, right? So if it shows you like the kind of motives of our of the agencies of our government. Let's see. All right. So back, oh yeah. So another one that's kind of interesting, right? Is you see that a lot of these Democrat, you know, senators, politicians, like, have rap names given to them, right? Which just totally blows my mind. You know, for example, Cardi B gave AOC La Mami de Congreso, right? Which Mami actually, especially in Mexico, at least that's the one I know for sure, it's used as slang for breasts, right? So you could say, like, how they milk Congress is through AOC. So something to look for. It was also funny that Elizabeth Warren had her own rap name, you know, and so another person that kind of connects a lot of this actually is this random guy. Oh yeah, so what really connects both sides, the East and the West, is this law firm, in my opinion, Paul Weiss, right? And you know, that's who Doug Cifu worked for 18 years. And oh yeah, I forgot to say, so Doug Cifu, and he said this in a space call back in May of 2023, which I have recorded. I'm going to post later. But he represented this guy, Carl Icahn, right? So he represented Carl Icahn on the Diddy side, and then he represented a guy named Frederick Fakai on the Epstein side. So pretty mind blowing. So one name though to look into is Paul Watcher, right? Looks like an interesting fellow, right? And TPG Growth Fund, you kind of see that coming up, and then United Talent Agency, right? That's the center of a lot. And he was the chairman of the board, right? Never even heard his name. And you see Bear Stearns, right? So why would Bear Stearns be important? Well, that's where Jeffrey Epstein got his start, right? So it's interesting, you got P. Diddy and Epstein both got their start through people, through through lawyers at Paul Weiss. Think about that, right? Paul Weiss represents more Epstein clients than any other law firm, as far as I know, right? So, it's pretty wild. And this Paul Watcher guy, he also went to Columbia Law School, just like Doug Cifu, right? And he's part of one of those Greek letter societies. Also, it operates a blind trust, for Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is wild, because if you think about it, there's all these conflicts of interest, right? You have these consultants and lawyers that are in every board, every of the S&P 500, and so they know what's going on, and they can trade accordingly, right? But they're not going to trade in their own account. They have to trade in someone else's account. So it seems pretty fishy that maybe some things are on there. University of California Board of Regents, right? Well, there's lots that goes into there, especially Berkeley. That's where Kamala Harris's parents invented Kwanzaa, right? So Kwanzaa is a Jamaican holiday, a Jamaican Indian holiday, right? Let's see. Oh, so he also, this Paul Watcher guy, is he was, one of his clients is LeBron James, and he signed a lifetime deal, over $1 billion with Nike, right? But Nike's a public company, and that's one common thread, is that basically all these people, the messed up people, they're plundering public company money, because that's shareholder money, right? And that shareholder money, whether you're directly invested in Nike or any of these other companies or not, it's either held in the mutual fund that you're holding or whatever. And so they're just pulling money out, right? And it has to come from somewhere. So either it leads to like the .com bubble burst, and what do you know? He's part of Time Warner, right? .com bubble bursted because Time Warner's deal with American Online, right? It was a merger that was insane, absolutely insane, and didn't have any value. And so, after the merger went through, people cashed out, right? That was the way of Time Warner, all these people like Paul Watcher, to get that exit liquidity. And it brought down the whole entire market, right? So this stuff does matter, right? There's a lot of people involved, but in my opinion, it's people like this play a pretty big role in the whole .com stock market collapse, right? And then he's at Bear Stearns as well, which blew up in 2008. So it's just like you can't even make this stuff up. It's so insane. So let's see. And they got Virgin America, right, with the Brandt's guy. Anyway, lots of weird stuff there. But yeah. Who's like, this is the I can't remember his name. It's something Branson, right? Richard Branson. Obviously has, oh my gosh, a center for missing and exploiting children, right? So that's bad, right? If the person's supposed to help missing and exploited children, if they don't have any morals, right? So, there he is choking some BDSM with Obama, right? Pretty wild. All right. What let's see. Oh, someone in the chat said, have I seen if Stormy Daniels was in Nexium? I had no idea. That is very fascinating. I don't doubt it, right? They're all in the same club. It's super, super weird. All right, so let's see what else is on here. Oh, and of course, so Carl Connie is, allegedly a rapist, right? There's some young woman, right? She posted it on Instagram, probably part of the Me Too movement, and then he took down his Instagram, right? So she says that like half her toenail was missing and scrapes were on her legs, and Carl's DNA was found on her person, right? So, that's just the kind of people there are, and we'll see in the Diddy trial how this all, how it all went down. So this is one of the biggest tie-in links right here is in the Greek letter societies. There is one that's, for typically Africa, right? The Pan-Hellenistic Council. And so you can, Diddy was part of one of these. It's and it's called like the boule, right? And that's literally the symbol of the boule right there. What's called the black boule, which is just one of those, or it's kind of like what's supposed to be above the Pan-Hellenistic Council. But that's the symbol right there, right? And here's Kamala Harris speaking at the Grand Boule, right? She's part of Zeta Phi Beta, right? Oh no, she was a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, which literally Diddy, I don't have it on this one, but Diddy is very close with that one as well. So all right. This one's speaking of the boule, right? Cory Booker, right? Got some weird stuff going on. Definitely some weird stuff going on. Let's see. It's probably, yeah. So let's get a little bit more into specifically this connection with Paul Weiss. That's, in my opinion, the most important kind of connection here for anyone familiar with Bed Bath & Beyond, right? One of the main heists, I mean, there was like multiple heists, but one of the main heists is that, these public companies, they used the American people's money, right, to buy properties. And what they realized, what these monsters on Wall Street realized, is they could just buy those properties for pennies on the dollar, right? So you had Mark Triton come in and sell the Bed Bath & Beyond properties, which, so they invested in these properties and for so long, I mean, literally new housing, everything kind of built around, the real estate that was there. So it went up in value. And they had lots of properties. They had, well over $1 billion worth of properties, and, sold it for $250 million, right? So pennies on the dollar, literally, or a quarter on the dollar, at least, right? Which, it was $1 billion when they bought it, and it definitely went up in value. But they sold it, and then they leased back that money, right? So they leased back those properties, which I think they spent the same money on rent for those properties that they got, that $250 million. I think they spent it in the next 6 months. So that shows you how corrupt they are. They thought no one would ever notice, right? And they did this to lots of different places, Red Lobster, Toys R Us, you name it. Like they all had the same sort of pattern, these leaseback agreements. And so the one specifically in the case of Bed Bath & Beyond is Blue Owl. And so it's not a surprise that a Paul Weiss lawyer is harassing Bed Bath & Beyond shareholders. And he even sent me a cease and desist, right? So, yeah, so Doug Cifu was a client, or was working with Frederick Fekkai, but I guess now it's this Ellen Ching. And she also works with Bain Capital, right? So what are the odds, right? Blue Owl Capital was the one who did the lease back with Bed Bath & Beyond. Bain Capital is the one who did it with Toys R Us and I think several others. I think they did a Red Lobster. So, yeah, and then you got KKR, right? KKR was just literally, I think it's Bear Stearns. After, like, all the people from Bear Stearns or Lehman Brothers, one of the two, that went down in 2008, they all just got together, you know, because they all got paid huge severance pays, right? They literally took down the world economy, and then they got paid hundreds of millions of dollars, right? It's absolutely insane. And so they took those hundreds of millions of dollars and, you know, more money because they had all these connections, and they built KKR. So you end up seeing that everywhere where there's crime. Let's see. Here's just kind of a glimpse of what they do. And so you take something people know about, right? You load it up with debt, but it's not just a matter of loading up with debt, but like when you have these bonds, you can counterfeit them, right? And so say they counterfeit all these bonds and they sell double the bonds or triple or quadruple, right? So it's, and then what do you know? Every time right before the bond payment comes due, because with a bond, you get paid the interest, and then at the, you know, at the end of the bond, you know, usually they're like 10 years or however they're set up to be, you get the whole principal amount, right? And that's literally the definition of a Ponzi, is where you're paying the interest, but then you never intend to actually pay it back, right? And so, you know, my guess is they counterfeited 4 times as many bonds, right? So let's say I think there's 5 billion, right? So say there's 5 billion, they end up, you know, selling 20 billion worth or more, right? 25 billion. And then they bankrupt it, and then they just don't ever have to pay it back. So it's just this way, and you can just see this model happening over and over again. It happened with Washington Mutual Bank as well, right? And you can kind of see these lines in here. These lines are called fails to deliver. These spikes on this chart, and so a fail to deliver is just where they're selling a share, but they're not actually selling it. They're just selling an IOU, and they're not even trying to locate it. They have no, like, the idea of borrowing shares is crazy, but like in this case, they're not even borrowing it. And you know, when you look at, you actually tally or total up how much they made. It's billions of dollars that they made in these, just in counterfeit shares. This isn't even actual short interest, but it was at least 32% short. That's reported. It was probably a lot more. When you total it all up, just on the short position and the fails to deliver, it's well over $50 billion for Washington Mutual. And you think, when would Washington Mutual ever make $50 billion? They wouldn't, right? And that's the thing, is most companies are worth more dead than alive. But that money has to come from somewhere. And where did it come from? It came from the taxpayers who had to bail out things, and it came from the shareholders who lost everything, right? And who was in the middle of it? Of course, TPG, right? Yeah, Bain Capital, Goldman Sachs, right? And those names just keep coming up, right? Notable employees, Chelsea Clinton. Yeah, okay. So, it's insane. And you can kind of see they're all part of Council on Foreign Relations, right? So is Cifu's daughter, right? She's on the Council of Foreign Relations, and to be part of that, you have to have like 2 letters, I think, from people that are already members. So it's definitely a club that is really hard to get into. So that means that Cifu has his connections. Jeffrey Epstein was part of Council on Foreign Relations, right? He had an office in Harvard, right? He was an ambassador for J.P. Morgan, and he had a lot of connections to Google, right? If you look at the history of Ghislaine Maxwell, right? Like, she made her money selling a company to, I don't know if it ultimately went to Google, it might have, but there's definitely a lot of connections there. So, how does Cifu do it? Well, it's kind of funny. I'm going to post it's kind of a long recording, but I'm going to post the space call where he talks about it. And it's mind-boggling how they just like confess things. And Doug Cifu is like, he's like, it's so weird that all these people keep pointing out like these counterfeit shares as if that's really important. He's like, there's way more counterfeit treasury bonds, right? And it's like, oh yeah, there is actually. And so you can actually go, like, there's literally a website, and it shows you, and you can just calculate how many fails to deliver there are for treasuries, right? So that's why I don't think Ken Griffin has been held accountable yet, is because he has so many fails to deliver right now of U.S. treasuries that he could pretty much wreck the market if he made them settle or not settle, right? So they're trying to, I guess, wean themselves off of Citadel for those securities or for those treasuries before they probably hold him accountable. Because the RICO rationale is already there, allegedly. I mean, it's definitely a lot of crime going on, right? And so that's how Virtu got its start. And everything in this video is speculation, right? And entertainment only. Haven't said that yet, but so Virtu was started to do this kind of stuff, to, in my opinion, do fails to deliver, kind of this kiting. They used to have check kiting, which I have a little graphic here actually on. I did. Yeah. So there's something called check kiting, which is just in between. You write a check, it goes to the bank, then they send it to the clearinghouse, then they send it to the other bank, and then it goes to their customer, right? And that takes time. And so, basically the same exact thing that people were doing, where they'd write a check on the West Coast and use that money in the 14 days or whatever it took to get to the East Coast. They would use that money and then make sure they put it in there, right? And so you just cross out bank accounts and you put alternative trading system. Instead of checks, you put shares, and you have it. So what I actually calculated with how many fails to deliver there are, and this might not seem like a lot, right? Like, because there's other ways they can make money with this, and there's more than just like the monetary, right? There's the power to have this money and everything that goes along with it. But if they take all the money from these fails to deliver and invest it every night on what's called the discount window, where banks need to just like an overnight loan, just so that when their bank opens up in the morning, they have that money. If they did it with the amount of fails to deliver, it's like at least $5 million every single day that they can make by failing to deliver, right? And these ones stack up, right? So if they're actually having 35-day settlements, that means that, you know, you could times it by 35, right? So that's a lot, right? You know, a couple $100 million per day, just lending out like money that shouldn't exist, right? Because it was a fail to deliver on the discount window. So in my opinion, that's why virtue exists. And in that space, he does go into say a lot. He like reveals a lot about you know, they had he said, he's like, oh, we don't pick which companies live or die or whatever. We don't pick which companies we settle or don't settle. And he's like, we use the algorithm that we got from Knight Capital to do it. And it's like, well, yeah, because there's all this stock lending that happens. And so it's the person picking is, there's something called Equilend, right? Which is this cabal of JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, all these big financial entities. They get to pick what the price target is, and that price target kind of determines these fails to deliver. And this little, so in the background, they have AI that supposedly kind of balances this out just so that the numbers somewhat work out. And you can see these like huge lines come in. These are the holdings of these different institutions. You have Jane Street, you have Susquehanna, you have Toronto Dominion Bank, right? Suddenly they have, each one of them, like one day a month, will have a huge amount of holdings. And it's because they're resetting this market maker exemption, right? The 35-day clock that they can abuse. Each time they put those holdings there just for one day, then they can just move it around, right? Like, why else would they have? And there's lots. This is Virtue Financial. You can see this huge spike. Why would that even exist? And it's funny because actually I don't even know why he would do it, right? Like Doug Cifu was like, oh, people will make fun of us for having, you know, $8 billion worth of securities that were sold, not yet repurchased. And he says, but he's like, Citadel has like 60 billion, and he's like, JP Morgan Securities has 200 billion. So yeah, it's definitely worth a listen. Can't believe, you know, he can invest all that. Let's see. And this is how, you know, to get back to Epstein and P. Diddy, right, is when you have money that to have money that's not traceable, the most liquid, least easy to trace money is literally shorted stocks, right? Because you don't have to report those, right? And also you can see, actually on this graphic, right, this is Bed Bath & Beyond right before bankruptcy. So you can see the insane amounts of fails to deliver. But the crazy part is if you look down here, right, it says this is the IPO date. So BBBY.Austria, right, IPO'd in December 2022. Like, what? Right? So the reason it did that, why did it do that? It's so that it could take advantage. So they get like a security that has enough appeal, worldwide appeal, that people will buy it in other countries. And those other countries don't have the same rules. So they can just fail to deliver And then when they bankrupt the stock, they don't have to pay it back, right? And that's why, that's why we haven't seen a conclusion to the Bed Bath saga, or even the GameStop saga, or AMC, is because, or MMTLP, right? Is because this is an international affair, right? That this would absolutely wreck these institutions. Like, these fails to deliver right here, that would financial, like, because they could never cover them, right? There's so many that it's like there was 1 billion in one day, right? That's the whole amount of shares outstanding in one day. So if they have that, they can't close it, right? Like, they can't, because they have to buy that security that they're short, and it just, a seller wouldn't exist, right? Because there's probably 5 times as many, 10, who knows, shares out there than there are real shares. And so if it squeezed, it would just go to infinity, right? And so it would literally completely wreck the entire country of Austria if they're forced to actually buy it back, because they would end up buying each share for millions or billions of dollars, right? And so they don't want that, right? And so my opinion is they're trying to figure out some way to settle it, because Austria is not the only one that's involved, right? The day we were supposed to get our shares back, or at least a dividend or something, right, was October 2023, and the London Stock Exchange glitched out that day. So my guess is London is very short. The International Bank of Settlements is short. There's a lot of people that are really short, and it would totally wreck them. I mean, they deserve it because they were cheating, but that's why, I think there has to be, it's going to have to literally be like the United States government going in and forcing them, which is kind of a touchy thing. And I'm sure there's a lot of negotiation going on. And you can see, one way how they do it, with the ETFs, because they have even less rules as far as fails to deliver. So XRT, and this is reported short interest, like 300%. And you can see the spikes, like literally Bed Bath was what was spiking XRT, which is super fascinating. Actually, wait, let's see. Oh yeah, right. So this guy, the Vienna Stock Exchange, right, in Austria, like, he's part of their clearinghouse, but also, anyway, lots of connections. Like, the president there is also part of their clearinghouse, supposed to settle the trades, and part of the investment, like the one investing all the retirement funds. There's a lot of, like, literally wild stuff. So let's see. So we got Paul Weiss as the connector. I mean, you also see Loop Capital, right? So Obama, and then so Obama Foundation, Loop Capital, right? Northern Trust, right? Northern Trust, they're in the middle of a lot of, like, that's a deep. If you want to know who's really doing, like, I don't know, who knows the intimate workings of the stock market and how to do crime, it's definitely Northern Trust. I mean, they're going to get held accountable for it, in my opinion, but yeah. And someone from Loop Capital, Kersner, I think they were on in Jeffrey Epstein's little black book. You also see, like, the origin, lots of things came out of Chicago. Chicago's like Chicago and New York were like the two places where, like, the mob, like, headquarters were. yeah, I could definitely go down this rabbit hole for a long time. But they were the ones who picked Obama. Chicago was, like these mob families, like the Pritzker family and the Crown family. You can even see how they operate. They always love their casinos, right? The Pritzkers came in and then they legalized gambling, but then just brought in, they're like, oh, okay, we're going to legalize it, but we don't want it to go crazy. So we're just going to have one to start off with, which is going to be like our casino. It's like, nice. That's the thing about the mob. They always want a monopoly, right? And that's why like Prohibition, like, made it to where they could have a monopoly, because the only people that could survive in Prohibition were the ones that already controlled the government. And anyway, lots of insanity. But oh yeah, and then you look like Equilend, right? Board of directors, people from Northern Trust, right? Credit Suisse, who went down. National Bank of Canada, right? Yeah. If you don't know who Neil Bloom is, he's been in the center of a lot of weird stuff as well. Also, like Chicago Community Trust, right? That's where like the word like antitrust comes from. Is like these trusts are what dominate how these monopolies are made. Let's see. This, I think this one has Northern Trust on it, right? So here's Germany, their Clearstream. So Germany, right, where you have Deutsche Bank. The fails to deliver is in the trillions, right? Fails to deliver securities. Number of settlement fails, right? 5 million value in euros, trillions of dollars. Rate of settlement fails is 50%. That's insane. Oh, these are, yeah. Failures to deliver cash, right? Oh, oops, I just didn't deliver cash, right? 2 million times, which equated out to trillions of dollars, right? It's just absolutely insane. Let's see. So the Atlantic Council, right? And they wanted the digital dollar, right? Because that was the way they were going to cover up. I actually have some DD I'm doing on who's allowed to fail to deliver a stable coin. And yeah, there's definitely some loopholes on. There's this infinite glitch. I'm going to do a post on it, but for stable coins where they can fail to deliver a stable coin if it meets certain criteria, and one of them is like, oh, you're investing on the overnight window, so they could just infinitely invest on the overnight window. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And the same characters in there on the World Mob, on the World Brotherhood one of the families that was there setting it up was the Rockefellers. So you always see them. You see Facebook, right? Of course, Goldman Sachs, and Northern Trust, right down here. Boom. So Deutsche Bank, Digital Dollar Project. Anyway, there's all these Citadel. Yeah, Yuval is the founder of the digital asset. Comes from Citadel, right? It's insane. I can't remember. I did this a little while ago. I can't remember where the connection to Hunter Biden was, but it's definitely there. What else had to? Oh, so now I get back to Doug Cifu. So why Doug Cifu is like what would he be his? I mean, there's lots of roles in this, but this is his client over here, Frederick Fekkai, and his son, Alexander Fekkai, it works for Enigma Securities, or Enigma Trading, and they do stock lending. And oh man, there's just like so much in this. So what's it called? Oh, so Pith, right? So on the Solana chain, so here's Pith, which is, just, anyway, it's a Solana developer, whatever. Like they have Virtu Financial, right, is a partner with them, right? You have Jane Street as well, and Radium, right? So, Radium is what connects FTX, right? Sam Bankman-Fried. We also have CBOE, right? That's the Chicago Stock Exchange, right? And jump trading, all these things. So the major scam is that they use this Pith network at lightning speed. So the whole idea of high frequency trading isn't just that like, oh, we're getting there faster. It's that they can literally see everything coming and choose what to do with it, right? So the regular stock market and what sets the price of the stock is like deals with like a 1 second basis. Like literally it's super archaic. It's just like 1 second. So within that, they can use a fraction of a second to get all that data. And so I can't remember which group. I'd have to look back into it. I have a post about it, I think. I think it's Pith Network, right? Like they pay people to basically post their data. So they're paying all these different brokers to post their trade data, and that way it can be front run, and they can route it wherever they want, and send it to the dark pools if they want, right? And Pith Network enables data owners to contribute their data on chain and in a sub-second timescale, right? It's just like, it's all here. Like, I'm not like making this stuff up, right? And who do you have in there? Let's see. What's this? You always just have the same people: Tiger Global Management, Goldman Sachs, Paxos, Banco Santander. That's if it's from Mexico. There's definitely something going on in Nubank, right? Don't know what it is, but I mean, I at this point, it's like I've researched so many different, like trying to fish the whole thing out. I'd say the Pith Network is probably the biggest, though. Real-time market data across asset classes will be a giant step forward for developing decentralized finance, DeFi applications, said Ari Rubenstein, co-founder and CEO of GTS. So I'm sure all my MMTLP homies, that will make their ears perk up. Like, wait, what? Because you use allegedly part of the fraud there, right? So basically they have, if everyone is contributing, all these different people are contributing to this network. So this data network where they're displaying, they can know how many shares there are to lend, and also just how many people are buying. And I think that part of this algo is how they all cooperate is they all post their price targets. And so that's what aims the share price at that target. And so they can all agree, right? Like, okay, well, we're all holding a bunch of Apple stock, so we're going to, NVIDIA stock, we're going to pump that all up, and we're all short, things like Bed Bath & Beyond, so we're just going to price that thing to zero. And that's how they win, is they all kind of come to an agreement on which stocks they want to go up and which ones they don't. And they share all that data through the Pith network, and it's right there, right? This is their page. You can go on there, and I just included just the ones that are directly involved. People that know more than me might know more, right? But Flow Traders, CBOE, Gemini, Jane Street, 2 Sigma, Jump Trading, Talos, Susquehanna, right? And all right, so, and then you can just start to look who all is part of each one, like LiquidNet, right? Like, oh man, right here. Okay, this is Leon Mazaus, whatever that is. Anyway, spearheads execution consulting for Virtu, right? The past 17 years. He specializes in algorithmic trading across roles at Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and LiquidNet, right? LiquidNet is a stock lending company, right? Matt Wernheim, executive director trading. So it's always EMEA, right? That's Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Mainly Europe, because that's where all the counterfeiting happens. And then JP Morgan, right? So he joined EMEA electronic trading, focused on algo and liquidity products, right? In this role, Matt works closely with clients to analyze execution performance, creates customized trading strategies, and drives the firm's suite trading solutions. Before joining JP Morgan in 2008, was responsible for distribution of LiquidNet's EMEA algorithms, right? It's just crazy. And then you look at General Atlantic, right? That's what I think Ghislaine Maxwell was part of. I mean, I'm sure Epstein was part of it as well, but I just know more so. Oh yeah, I forgot about this, man, because it's been a while. So Doug Cifu, that's where he got his start, I think, or one of them. Highlights the role played by General Atlantic, one of his biggest clients at the law firm, right? Yeah, wow. And that's why, yeah. Anyway, just looking at General Atlantic, there's a lot of stuff there. Paul Weiss was advising private equity firm General Atlantic. So, and they have Talos, they have Santander, right? Citgo, and CBOE. Yeah. And then actually SP, Investimentos, that was something also connected to this whole thing. All right, what else we got here? But yeah, this does come back to, Enigma Securities Maker Group by Open Trade, right? I think they do stock lending as well. So how they do it is like, you want to socialize the risk, privatize the profits, but also there's ways to kind of, one way of socializing the risk is that you have like a shell company that's the only one that can be held accountable. So like Bed Bath & Beyond, they never bought back their shares that they actually bought back, right? JP Morgan was supposed to do $12 billion worth of share buybacks. And what I think they did was it said in the agreement, they worked with their third party, and they had probably someone else, and it was probably like a long line, a third party that used another third party, which ultimately led to probably some small group like Open Trade or whatever that was supposed to do the stock lending, so that if it blew up, it's a company outside the country, and they couldn't be held accountable because there's probably no money in there, right? Same thing with like Virtu Financial, right? Like they purposely keep it to where it's the one. I think that Virtu Financial's whole job is just to do the dirty work of JP Morgan. And so worst case scenario, all this comes ahead, right? Well, JP Morgan's going to point the finger at Virtu Financial, and then the money isn't there, right? So they get sued and the money just isn't there, right? LiquidNet, right? From like a ex-Citi. So Citibank was the bank that was doing all the money laundering for, literally the Iran-Contra affair and whatnot. And then Nomura, right? They were the ones that, one of the biggest ones that caused the problem in 2008. Yeah, awesome. Let's see. You can see how Doug Cifu literally uses Virtu's money, right, to lobby to keep these loopholes and to keep this abuse, to be able to keep abusing the system. So, basically, so the SEC, right, like as much as like Gary Gensler is connected to Doug Cifu and all these other people, like to the swamp, like they still like have to at least act like they're doing something. And so he suggested to get rid of payment for order flow, and Doug Cifu just threatened litigation. Like, I'll just hold it up in court the entire time. Luckily, that got changed with some of the Supreme Court rulings this last summer. So this is Mark Carney, right? It was crazy. I did this post a long time ago, and then he ends up becoming Prime Minister of Canada, right? He's a Jesuit, went to Harvard, right? And he ended up working for the Bilderberg Group, World Economic Forum, Group of 30, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Bank of America, BNP Paribas, BP, Boeing, right? Like, just, it's just insane. So he got his start, and he was part of the Central Bank of London, or of the UK, and then also of Canada. He was I think he was in charge of the central bank in the UK during 2008, and so when the bailout happened, he got petitioned to get a bunch of that money sent to them, and he got started Brookfield Asset Management, which is a company that the Bronfmans started, right? So it's just wild. It's just wild how this all connects. Oh yeah, totally forgot. Okay, so you had our friend Dougie. So you got his nickname, Dougie Large, from Carl Icahn, right? Because he said he's large and in charge, right? And so Doug, you just look who he's donating lots of money, definitely a mega donor to Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer, right? And you just see like this swamp right here. And so believe it or not, Frederick Fekkai is Hillary Clinton's hairdresser. That's insane. That's literally insane. Like, I had no idea, because and Frederick Fekkai, I don't think I have it up actually, but he So he's a hairdresser in, Miami, but also has like a hair products thing. But he's like a celebrity hairdresser person. He had literally, I guess this picture, he has the Victoria's Secret angels with him, right? I can't remember their names because it's totally unimportant to me, but these ones, if you look into their history, like one of them was like a representative for FTX, right? I mean, it's just like this really incestuous sort of thing. Also, before I forget, just since I'm here, this guy, so this is Leon Black, who Paul Weiss represented, right? He was an Epstein client, and doing a lot of financial work with them, right? He was one of the co-founders of Apollo Global Management. Well, so here they are with this guy. I can't remember what his name is. He's part of this group. He's the oldest brother of this group of Cubans that does like sugar businesses, right? And that connects them to Citibank and to, anyway, all the gangs and whatnot in Cuba. So anyway, this is Freddie Fekkai with, the Victoria's Secret, right? And Jeffrey Epstein had power of attorney over Lex Wessner. So it shows how close they were. So anyway, Freddie Fekkai got in trouble for abusing underage girls. I don't know if he's been convicted, but you can read the court documents. It's like very, very straightforward. I have no idea why he's not in jail. It's actually kind of mind-blowing. But not just that, like he was working, supposedly one of the girls was giving a massage, and in the court transcript she said that he was on the phone with Epstein and coordinating the trafficking of other girls, right? So that means he's not just a client of Epstein, but an accomplice, right? And here, Doug Cifu is, he called him his dear friend and client. And so I'm sure he would call Carl Connie, he was his client, but I'm sure he'd call him a dear friend. I mean, obviously he called him a dear friend because he made his whole username Dougie Large. And I don't know if that's just signaling to that group that connection is still there. I have no idea. I mean, he even said it, in a space call. He was not ashamed of it. And so this Mark Carney guy, right? Kind of crazy. Task Force on Scaling Voluntary Carbon Credits. Like that was the biggest scam. Oh my gosh. Like not just scam, like literally like a heist of the world. But he was on Michael Bloomberg's board of directors. So that's why I have Sean Tabor here, is because Sean Tabor's parents are deep in the Michael Bloomberg. You can look. Like he has a NGO called Everyday Gun, right? And Sean Tabor, especially his mom, right, is super deep in that world, right? And so that's, in my opinion, the connection is Michael Bloomberg to Sean Tabor. That's why he's out there harassing all these random investors like me, right? And so you can see this connection, right? You have this central banker, right? Governor of the Bank of England, right? Who's on the board of, Bloomberg LP, right? So it's just all connected. It's all connected. And it's also why he's really weird, right? It's that same, there's, anyway. So, and then there's the Bronfmans up here for the Fraternity Mondiale, right? Okay. kind of crazy. I'm just kind of putting this out there as a reference for people that want to go down some pretty crazy rabbit holes. Obama was a community organizer, and so that's what like a lot of these like literally paid shills are community organizers. Here's one, Girls Inc. Oh man, literally they're connected with Adventures of the Mind. Adventures of the Mind literally went to Epstein's Island. Like, it's just like, it's just crazy. I'll just lay this here as a reference. Like, it's definitely unbelievable. Oh yeah, Sergey Brin was part of it, right? The Google CEO. So all these like are connected, in my opinion, through the Royal Society. The Royal Society is connected because it was just the way that things got set up when, I don't know, what was that? Like the late 1800s, the Queen, well, someone connection to the Queen, went around and started all these royal orders. So it's basically a way to be part of the club, but then you do your own thing. So you're just like, hey, you know, they go to Japan. Okay, like you have your own Order of the Rising Sun, and you can manage it. Here's just the rules, how we play together, right? So they're all, you'll always see these royal societies. You also see the American Philosophical Society. And the Humanists, right? The American Humanist Association. Fauci won this Humanist of the Year, right? It's absolutely insane. Let's see, what is... it's a while ago. Anyway, I can't remember... Girls Inc. I mean, because they're trafficking kids, right? So, you know, you'll definitely see all these different associations, and then you see who's there, and you're like, wait, what? Hillary Clinton, less... yeah, anyway, I'll come back to that another time. I can't... What did this have to do with Nordstrom? So, Macy's, right? So it's kind of wild that, you know, Carl Icahn, right, who gave PW a start, would sell his clothes at Macy's, right? Macy's was the one who, and Nordstrom's were the ones that had the modeling agency that Jeffrey Epstein was in charge of, called MC2, right? So it's just wild to see all these, you know, Macy's and Nordstrom, right? And the CEO of Bed Bath & Beyond ran back to Nordstrom's where he came from as soon as he got called out. Anyway, there's lots in here. Yeah. Here's one I haven't actually released yet. I just won't even explain it, but, well, yeah. I'll just say Damon Defense Systems. They do Barack Obama's presidential library. And kind of interesting. There's this same sort of restaurant that's always near a Victoria's Secret and a Nordstrom's. And then they'll just hire them as a project coordinator for whatever this Damon Defense Systems is. Yeah. Literally on the border, actually. Anyway, they're right on the border of Washington and Canada. Anyway, I guess there's some trafficking going on there. Just saying. Joey's Restaurant seems pretty sus. Like, literally different people were like big brothers and sisters of Canada, like, you know, going to Thailand and working with orphans, right? It's just like, I mean, that's literally where all the sex trafficking like happens. So what was this? Oh, Oh, I can't remember what the connection to Ethical Capital Partners, which is literally like, yeah, anyway, I'll let you guys, yeah, other random ones I'm probably not going to go down. I don't know as much about Ray. So this is the only other person that I know of so far that really connects Diddy and Epstein, which is Rachel Chandler. But there's a lot to go in there, and other people do it. Oh yeah, so Carl. Oh yeah, I guess I will go into this just because. So Rachel Chandler, who connects both of them, she was like her modeling agency would work with Balenciaga. And like her modeling agency was doing weird stuff with like literally little kids and really morbid stuff. And, you know, anyway, just super, super weird. But Carl Icahn was working with Balenciaga, right? He was also working with Disney. Right? Like, that's crazy. But yeah. And then here's Rachel Chandler, right? This is her with M&M. And she's like, oh, this is when I was 16. Then you have this same Carl Icahn guy with Jay-Z, right? So there's a lot here. And just to Oh yeah, this is Creative Artists Agency. Oh yeah, this is a good one. So they're the ones giving book deals to Obama, Hillary Clinton, right? And what do you know? TPG Capital, right? Got Harvey Weinstein. Bain Capital. This is the thing we went to Washington Mutual went through, right? And Hearst. That's where like the University of California comes, like the kind of the weird stuff, not all of it, but quite a bit of the weird stuff with the University of California comes through like the Hearst family. Anyway, lots there. And I guess we'll just finish it off with this, right? So this is Chrissy Teigen. Oh my gosh, some of the things she said and does are crazy. Like she said that her and John Lennon, not John Lennon, John Legend, had a crazy sex party with Obama when he was a senator, right? And this is her with the CEO of Bed Bath & Beyond, Mark Triton, right? When he worked for Target. It's like the most insane thing to me, right? She got a whole business deal to sell cookware, right? She doesn't even cook, right? Like, it's just like they have ways of like you do something really bad for the group that they get done. For example, like Epstein for Bear Stearns, he, I don't know, did some kind of insider trading thing, got in trouble. They fired him, but that like made him a made man, right? In this kind of mob. So yeah, I mean, she was talk about like, oh, I've always, like, have you ever thought about eating human flesh, And then she's just like, oh, I'm about to Anthony Weiner this kid. I now know what parents go through when they're forced to tie their kids up in the basement. You have to do it, but it's icky. Am I right? What the heck? She's like very disturbed. Oh yeah, I forgot there was a TD Securities connection to Frederick Fekkai. That's crazy. Oh yeah, and what do you know? Target or Nordstrom's had a TD Bank and Target cards specifically. Wow. And then of course you have Paul Weiss and TD Bank. Yeah, it's just it all just keeps coming back together. So anyway, this has been wild and real. Thanks for coming for this very rough, but I just had a lot of different things that I wanted to go through. And, you know, for the few people out there that are interested, definitely feel free to post whatever, because now's the time. You know, the Diddy case is coming out and a lot of people don't know what the connection is. So anyway, love you all, and